Okay, I'm going to react to a specific sentence that Francis from Trigonometry is going to now say. They're talking about communism, and they're asking themselves the question, why is it that nobody really understands it? So let's hear what they have to say.
Joel, why is it that communism is so appealing to people in the West? And he said to me, the thing is, Francis, is talking to somebody about communism is like saying to somebody who grew up, talking to a Westerner about communism, is like saying to somebody who grew up in a very rich, privileged part of the city, don't go into the rough part of the city, don't go into that alley. They've had no experience of it, they don't understand it. He said, it's only when they're down the alley, it's only when they're turning around, it's only when they see someone coming for them, and it's only when they feel the blow to the back of the head will they truly understand what communism is.
You've got it exactly. You've got it exactly. And that's one of the reasons why
You haven't got it exactly. So, just to set the stage, yeah? I'm from Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia is sort of communism light, right? Before its collapse. I'm relatively young compared to Yugoslavia itself, but I've lived under Yugoslavia for about 6 years. There was no level of violence at the time there, or anything like this. What there was, however, there was economic misery and all sorts of stuff. Now, the thesis being put forward is that essentially it's impossible really to have a discussion with somebody and make them understand how vile communism is when it comes to the execution of violence, for instance, and that sort of thing. And they're using a violent example as a fitting example in their view, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but I do disagree with the fundamental principle. So just to clarify, I don't disagree with the fact that I agree with the... Oh boy, that's not English. Anyway, I agree with the idea that they're putting forward that it's vile, right? And I agree that it leads eventually to extreme violence. That's fine. But I don't agree that nobody can understand it, and I don't agree unless they feel it. That's absurd. And I don't agree that there's nothing anybody can do, which is what both interlocuting sides seem to agree on. And here is why. We have the capability of utilizing our minds, logic, deduction, ethics, etc. All sorts of tools at our disposal to try and reason our way through this, right? The fundamental point of communism is that private property ought not to exist. That is a theoretically impossible position to hold. Animals understand private property. When a squirrel is tucking away the nuts, he or she is tucking away the nuts for him or herself. That is private property. Everybody understands the idea that if I labor, I need to benefit from the fruit of my labor to some extent. Communism essentially attacks this premise, fundamentally. And it states instead that all humans should be more like ants and less like squirrels. Right? So squirrels look after themselves and their loved ones, right? Ants don't have a will. Ants don't matter, because the only ant that matters is the queen, right? Which is a sort of dirty little secret of communism. Nobody mentions the fact that there is a queen that matters, and they give it 57 names, from state to society to these amorphous concepts. But the point is, every human is a drone, right? If I need you to go work over there, it doesn't matter what your talents are. You're going to work over there. You're just an object. Okay? Now, of course, this is not explained in this way. Communism consistently, I apologize, people who proselytize communism consistently depict idyllic scenarios, just like John Lennon's song, right? It's everybody is happy, everybody is enjoying it immensely, nobody is married to anybody, everybody belongs to everybody or to nobody. It's all very amorphous, and it's just sort of this eternal bon vivant's paradise. That's not really what happens, because work needs to be done in order to progress in any direction in life, which means unpleasant things need to be done as well. Now, the one way in which a individual can be motivated to act, to do something unpleasant, is through the benefit of himself. The moment in which the individual is perceiving an active benefit. Now, that could very well be an altruistic mentality, but that is still his decision. And he will not be altruistic if he's starving. So he will have some base level expectations. Some people will have a lower base level expectation. Some people will have a higher base level expectation. We call this ambition, or lack thereof, right? So, while I will agree that there is a lot of strong advocates for this or the other, essentially religious dogma, that can't be convinced potentially. The reason why they can't be convinced is not because they haven't felt it, though that helps. But even if they felt it, the moment in which they would be convinced of its awfulness would be too late. And the moment in which they were given any degree of power, any degree of queenship, of being more queen-like in the hierarchy of man, that individual will immediately forget the evils. The problem that is present is not the lack of experience. There is an insane amount of experience available, from history books to whatever. What is missing is introspection. What is missing is basic levels of wise pondering. Right? But it's absolutely, genuinely, properly trivial. All one would need to do is ask themselves, am I willing to have my phone, whatever, taken away from me immediately for no reason at all, and I have no control over it? Am I willing to sleep on the streets tomorrow night because somebody kicked me out and I have absolutely no right to protest because it needs to go to somebody more needy than me, that the Queen has decided they are more needy than me? It's as simple as that. There's the literature all over the place discussing this, exploring this. And it can be read by anybody. The problem with all ideologues is that all of them bleat and none of them think. That's it, really. Now, how do you get ideologues to think? That I don't have an answer for. Or two, or both. But I was an ideologue like everybody else from this perspective. Whenever you notice people who attack communism consistently, everybody has their path in how they get there. But it's all in older age. And one of the reasons why this is because, of course, schools are re-educational systems. Communism is all around us, and it's absolutely real, it's absolutely tangible. That's why you have an income tax that it's based on your earnings, wherever you live. The more you earn, the more you get taxed. From each according to their means, to each according to their needs. Except the second part of the equation doesn't particularly matter, because all of communism is fundamentally based in envy. Right? He's got a green fence. I like green. Why don't I have a green fence? Let me go and destroy his fence so both of our fences are now brown or broken or whatever. Or let me remove the fence from here and put it on my side. And then the fence decays because you don't maintain it as well as the guy who really cares for his green fence, who instead immediately stops working because you have stolen his fence, and he says, what's the point in working more? Communism doesn't need to be violent to be disgusting. Communism eventually becomes violent, but it doesn't need to be violent at all to be disgusting. And nobody needs to be conked on top of their heads in order to determine that this is disgusting. All socialism and all communism is disgusting by default, because it all bases itself on crimes. Chief among them, theft. And it is trivial to reason your way through this. Now, the fact that lots of people will not want to, and the fact that lots of people will be unpersuadable for numerous reasons, including their because the entire foundation of their religious belief gets completely undermined the moment in which somebody does challenge it. I mean, they don't even have the vocabulary to address this, right? They don't have the lexicon. Every one of their definitions is wrong. Fair for them means equal. That's absurd. That's completely nonsensical. Well, if things were fair, then we should chop off one of Michael Jordan's legs, right? So the Bulls don't go on a dynasty. This doesn't make any sense. Right? Lobotomize Kobe because otherwise he becomes an absolute alpha. Is whatever sport you follow, right? Of course, it's unfair that Shaq is taller and bigger than everyone else. So, that's why it's awesome. Willingness, desire, ambition, all sorts of positive qualities are completely squashed by communism because communism exists based on theft. And the moment in which your work is unrewarded at best, or, like it is done today, it's rewarded with a crime, meaning the harder you work, the more gets stolen from you, well, the less you're going to want to live. And nobody has any children. See if you can draw any degree of syllogisms in this. So, yeah, you don't need to be conked on the head to understand what evil is. You need to sit down honestly with yourself and ponder. That is all you need to do.